Every day, in millions of homes, a puppy will stop mid-stride, lower its nose to the floor, turn in a tight little circle, and then do something its owner will spend the next 20 minutes cleaning up. We call it an accident. But what if it isn't an accident at all? What if that circling, that sniffing, that strange ritual before elimination is actually the visible fragment of a behavior that is tens of thousands of years old, older than agriculture, older than language, older than the dog itself? And what if the reason some puppies seem to get it in days, while others take months, has almost nothing to do with intelligence, and everything to do with a piece of ancient wolf biology still running quietly inside every puppy on Earth? This is the story of how that biology can be used, deliberately, precisely, hour by hour, to take a puppy from total chaos to a fully housebroken companion in exactly 4 days. But to understand how, we first need to understand why a young dog does what it does in those first chaotic weeks. Because the puppy on your kitchen floor right now is, in a very real sense, running software that was written for a den in the wild. And once you see that software, housebreaking stops looking like a battle of wills. It starts looking like something closer to translation. Here is the first mystery. Wolves, the ancestors of every dog alive today, almost never eliminate inside their den. Biologists who study wild and captive wolf packs have long noticed this. It built the aversion to soiling the nest directly into the animal's instincts, active almost from birth. This is sometimes called the den instinct, and it survives, largely intact, in the domestic dog. It's why a healthy puppy will often refuse to eliminate in its own sleeping area, even before it has been taught anything at all. And it's why the single most powerful tool in housebreaking isn't a treat or a command or a clicker. It's a crate, not as a punishment, as a ben. But here's where the mystery deepens. If this instinct is so strong, why does almost every puppy still have accidents? Why does a creature biologically wired to avoid soiling its space do exactly that over and over in its first week's home? The answer lies somewhere else entirely, in plumbing, not psychology. A puppy's brain may be racing to learn the rules of its new world, but its body is still under construction. The muscles that control bladder retention, the same muscles an adult dog uses to hold it for 6 or 8 hours, are not fully developed in a young puppy. Veterinary behaviorists generally describe bladder control as something that matures gradually over the first several months of life, which is why very young puppies may need to relieve themselves every couple of hours, sometimes more. This single fact reframes the entire problem. It means most early accidents aren't a failure of training at all. They're a failure of expectation. We are, in effect, asking an animal with the bladder control of a toddler to behave like an adult, and then we're surprised when biology wins. And that idea, using biology instead of fighting it, is exactly what makes a 4-day timeline possible. If this kind of question fascinates you, what's really happening inside the mind of a dog, beneath the behaviors we think we already understand, there's a whole hidden world like this we keep uncovering. It's worth sticking around for what else is buried in there. For decades, dog training carried 2 very different philosophies about how to stop bad elimination behavior. The older theory, correct the puppy after the fact, rub the nose in it, scold, make the action feel wrong. The newer theory, now backed by a large and growing body of behavioral research, punishment after an accident teaches almost nothing useful, because a puppy cannot connect a scolding minutes later to an action already finished. What punishment does reliably produce is stress, and stress, measurably, raises cortisol, the hormone associated with anxiety in mammals. Multiple studies on dog training methods have found that confrontational or punishment-based techniques are associated with higher rates of fear and stress responses in dogs without a corresponding improvement in the behavior owners actually wanted. In other words, the discipline approach doesn't just feel harsh, it tends to be biologically counterproductive. A stressed puppy is often a puppy that loses bladder control faster, not slower. The dogs that learn quickest are almost without exception the owners who removed the opportunity to fail in the first place and rewarded the moment success happened within seconds, not minutes. This is sometimes called, instead of waiting for mistakes to correct, you architect the environment so the correct behavior is nearly the only one available, and then you make that behavior feel unmistakably good the instant it happens. It sounds almost too simple, but it's the entire engine behind the 4-day method. So here is the blueprint, built from den instinct, bladder physiology, and errorless learning, laid out hour by hour. A caution before we begin. This is a structured framework, not a guarantee. Age, breed, individual temperament, and prior experience all shift the timeline. Some puppies will be reliable by day 4. Others will need this same structure extended another week or 2. The science behind why it works is solid. The exact speed is always biology's decision, not ours. Day 1 is about building the pattern. Straight from the crate to the same outdoor spot every morning, on leash, no detours, no play, just wait quietly. The instant elimination happens, reward immediately. Praise and a small treat within seconds while the puppy is still finishing. After breakfast, outside again within 15 to 20 minutes, since a puppy's digestive system often triggers the urge to eliminate shortly after eating. Every 1 to 2 hours through the day, repeat the trip outside, rewarding any success on the spot. All unsupervised time is spent confined to a crate or a small puppy-proofed pen, small enough that it still feels like a den, not a room to wander and soil. And the last outing before bed comes as close to lights out as possible. Day 2 is about recognizing the signal. The same wake, feed, and outing rhythm continues, but now the focus shifts to watching closely for the pre-elimination ritual, the sniffing, circling, sudden stillness near a doorway. This is the puppy's own ancient signal, the same one wolves display before leaving a den. The moment that signal appears anywhere indoors, the response is to calmly interrupt and move straight outside. Intervals between outings can begin stretching slightly, guided by how the puppy is actually doing, not the clock alone. Day 3 is about earning space. Supervised freedom begins, short stretches of free movement in one puppy-proofed room, always under direct watch. Any accident is met with no punishment, a neutral interruption and immediate redirection outside, with rewards still arriving only for success. The confined den space remains the default the instant supervision isn't possible. Day 4 is about testing the system. The schedule built over 3 days is now tested. Slightly longer gaps between outings, slightly more freedom, the puppy's own signals trusted a little further. Owners often report this is the day it starts to feel less like management and more like communication. The puppy asking, the owner understanding. And that, perhaps, is the real discovery hiding inside this whole process. The 4 days were never really about teaching a puppy where to go. They were about giving an ancient instinct the conditions it needed to express itself, and giving 2 species, separated by thousands of years of evolution, a brief, repeated chance to actually understand each other. Here's what still puzzles researchers, and what no 4-day method fully explains. Why do some fully housebroken adult dogs that haven't had an accident in years, suddenly regress under stress, in a new home, or after a major change in routine? If housebreaking were purely a learned habit, it shouldn't unravel. Which suggests that what we call housebreaking was never really a fixed skill at all. It may be closer to a fragile agreement between instinct and environment, one that can hold for years and still, under the right pressure, come undone. Which means the puppy circling on your kitchen floor tonight isn't really learning a rule. It's negotiating, in the only language it has, with an instinct that's been running since long before either of you existed. And maybe that's the real mystery worth following next. Not how dogs learn what we teach them, but what happens deep in that ancient instinct when everything they thought they knew suddenly changes.